spent protecting the most powerful people on the planet, U.S. presidents. Before that, Paul was a high school teacher. Today, we join Paul as we sit down and explore the latest danger to society, one that the FBI alerted the public about back in July 2022. And since then, things have got exponentially worse. Artificial intelligence risks in cybersecurity have now become something so unbelievable and so unlike anything else. Synthetic media, deepfakes. You need to see and hear it for yourself to understand what's actually happening. This will have a generational impact, and it will lead to what many fear will be a new era of needing to verify everything we see and hear online, because what we think we see people actually doing may in fact be synthetic. It may in fact be fake. We're going to explore new ways to reduce risk of deepfakes, how deepfakes are made, how are deepfake videos made, how are audio deepfakes made, and more. It's unlike anything else. This is the story of Paul Eckloff and how AI is making it harder to detect deepfakes. Cyber news into business language we all understand. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our podcast episodes on Apple and Spotify so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. All right, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Morrow. In the studio today is Paul Eckloff. Paul was a U.S. Secret Service agent for 23 years, 14 of which were spent protecting U.S. presidents. Before that, Paul was a high school teacher. Very excited today, Paul. He's one of the top leaders with LexisNexis Risk Solutions, and we're going to discuss various topics today, mostly concerning deepfake technology, the risk that it poses in the cybersecurity space today, as well as the risk that it poses to all of us in terms of misinformation and the dangers that all of us face in light of this advancement in technology. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Paul.
Hey, Dave. It's great to be back on Cybercrime Junkies to talk about deepfakes. Some of them are actually getting realistic. In fact, I'm not perfect, but I'm a pretty decent deepfake of Paul.
That wasn't even you, Mr. Paul Eckloff. So the real Paul Eckloff is right here. So Paul, welcome to the studio.
I don't know who that guy is. It's interesting.
I didn't recognize the hand gestures. That would have been one telling thing for me.
We'll get into that, but it is interesting how deep fakes work and how what they train on and what they learn from and what you begin with and end with. And like that deep fake of me, my avatar, which is, it's neat to have an avatar. It's sad that I'm not 12 foot tall and blue, but
it's so true. You know, maybe we can adjust that.
Or an airbender, which I guess that was long before the other avatar. But deepfakes are just fascinating. But it's another one of these terms like cyber or these other things that we throw out and we dismiss. And I don't know, we remove the human element from it. But deepfakes, they really represent, I don't know, this is what I call hyperbole, but it really represents a crossing of the Rubicon for the human species. You know, you look at the various revolutions. If you start with steam, then electricity, machines, computers as the fourth industrial revolution, and then the fifth, perhaps data and artificial intelligence. It's a point where seeing is no longer believing.
And that is a risk that will affect us all in both our professional and personal lives.
Absolutely. It's all down to, once again, when we talk about crime, cybercrime, physical crime, or my background in physical security, it comes down to how these crimes, or they do like my deepfake, how
David, let me explain.
Someone who does that a lot. These crimes, how they're done, because basically to commit crime, you have two choices essentially. If you're going to ferment it down, as we said, I don't like to distill things down because I prefer beer, but it's either deception or physical force.
Right.
I've got to convince you to do something that is against your own self-interest. Now, Sun Tzu mastered it, millennia ago, but if I can convince you to do it to yourself or fool you without firing a shot, it's far more effective in warfare, crime, espionage, influence campaigns, and deep fakes. Though they have been around for many, many years, it was born. Deepfakes themselves were born around 2014, but
yeah, the first ones were really used in like social media, and it was almost more like parlor games back then, right? And then they really started to make news politically when we started to see some of the deep fakes. We have the deep fake that you and I have reviewed of President Obama, which we can show toward the end of the show, where he, that was done by one of the comedians. But the President Obama video was done by a great comedian, and he just showed the danger of it, right? The leader of the free world could be made to say various things, and just like that, the leader of organizations can be made publicly to say things as well as internally to say things, and it can have a ripple effect because seeing is no longer believing.
Seeing is no longer believing. In that video with Jordan Peele, it was meant not only to demonstrate the capability, and I believe it took hours and hours of computer crunching at the time to do, if not days, which can now be done in minutes for $19 on the internet, as my deepfake will show you, was meant to be a canary in the coal mine, or just to be a warning of sorts, to show you that you needed to check your sources. You needed to be aware of not everything you see is real. And this is especially true and become far more important in the social media age. We've come from a time when you and I grew up, when the trusted news source, whether it was later
Walter
on,
Cronkite,
these individuals, you trusted them as your news source. Well, now those people on the major networks get very little views, and yet Kim Kardashian's lunch will get millions and millions of views. Well, she's become a quasi-celebrity, although interestingly, just as deepfakes were essentially born of porn. I won't bridge that gap too much for how a lot of modern celebrity has begun. But when you look at the democratization of communication, is what the internet and social media has done, for good or bad, your neighbor's teenager's opinion on their social media platform can go viral, or these people can become content creators with very little in resources that can equal, rival, or surpass the major networks. Well, that sort of began it. So now I can create you're already designed to understand or expect the truth from essentially a less trusted source. Not that the average American is less trusted than a news person and probably has less motive to deceive you, perhaps.
No, but I think what the point you're getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's true. The change in journalistic verification before things go out, right? We've seen that, where there's a lot of stories that go viral in the news, whether they start at a traditional news desk and then get launched out, but they're not vetted, it seems sometimes, like they used to be. Like before, they would have spoken to the exact source. They would have cross-examined them, verified anything that source was relying on before they reported it out. But today it's like, well, we're citing this blog post or this social media post, which is relying on a source of a source, and nobody's ever talking to the end source to find out whether it's true or not. That is a separate issue, right? But in that environment now we're launching in advancements in artificial intelligence and deepfake technology, where now what we see may not actually even be accurate or what that person is. And to me, the shocking thing is in the last 6 months, the technology has gotten so much better. Right before an election year, like it is very, very alarming.
Already seen.
Yeah,
we've already seen the precipitate of that. We saw the deep fake voice of Joe Biden telling Democratic voters not to vote in the Northeast, and of course, instantly it was decided that it was a Republican tactic. It turned out to be a Democratic rival's tactic. So you really never know. And the problem with these videos is as they become more and more accurate, as computing power becomes more powerful and you get down to the pixel and these algorithms get stronger, there really is only a matter of time before they were completely indistinguishable. And they're already pretty close. But when you look at what's going to happen and the capability, as we talked about last time, the intersection of national security, physical security, and cybersecurity, deepfakes are really at the forefront of that. And
they really are, because you see them being leveraged in other countries, and we're going to get to that in just a second, for misinformation campaigns, espionage campaigns, manipulation, fraudulent transactions, all of that.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that I'm surprised my avatar doesn't say. And watching our previous 2 episodes, I use that word way too much. And we'll talk about the previous episodes and somebody's deep faking of my image later on.
Yes, we will.
But we'll get that fixed this time. When you look at...
We absolutely will.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
That's absolutely terrifying.
It is,
I don't have
isn't
to get that. I only have my own.
It's not as terrifying as this.
Okay, sorry. I had to. If to quote Kennedy, if not us, who? If not now, when? Right? So just wanted to say that. So.
And as Abraham Lincoln once famously said, never believe anything you read on the internet.
Yes, he did. Yes, he was an avid Facebooker back in the day. That was when Facebook was first coming out.
He may have been a reincarnation of Fraudstradamus, but we can unpack that later. We're really not sure. It's pretty pressing.
So let's back up and go ahead. Yeah, let's back up. Let's talk about what are deepfakes. Like, how are they created? Let's not go down the rabbit hole too much or get too technical, but we've done a lot of research, and so basically they're created kind of in 3 various ways, or they're leveraged 3 various ways. GANs, diffusion models, and VAEs. Do we want to kind of explain, or does it make sense if I just explain what each term means, and then we can kind of explore the context in which they're used?
Absolutely. It is a rabbit hole, especially as you get down to the VAEs. I think the diffusion models,
it really is.
And the generalized adversarial networks are probably more important. But yeah, it's like a magic rabbit like Bun Bonini that is coming up with these things. I don't think that the scientists even fully understand what they're unleashing.
Yeah, absolutely. So GANs, GANs are generative adversarial networks, GANs, right? And they flawlessly substitute one person's face in a video or an image for somebody else's, right? And they're very, very supportive in the creation of deepfakes. A generative adversarial network, from my research, is a deep learning architecture. It trains 2 neural networks to compete against each other, hence the name, right? Generative adversarial networks, right? And when they compete against each other, they generate more authentic new data, right? So the 2 machines compete against each other and they spit out something even more authentic than the given training data that they were given. For instance, you can generate new images from an existing image database or original music from a database of songs. The diffusion model, right? The diffusion model is a deep neural network that holds latent variables capable of learning the structure of a given image by removing its blur. So in that model, it's trained to know the concept of abstraction being like behind the image. So it can create new variations of that image. So in the context of machine learning, those diffusion models, they generate new data by reversing a diffusion process, meaning information loss due to noise intervention, right? So the main idea here is really they add random noise and then remove it, and then they get a new image or data set. And VAEs are variational autoencoders. And in the artificial neural network architecture, like the deepfake context, they're used for like deepfake detection, right? They're able to train only on like a real face and then detect any non-real images. So it looks like VAEs are something that is being researched and stuff for deepfake detection. That's what my research has showed. It sounded very official, so I just wanted to go with that. What is the significance of each one? How do they play in this grand scheme of things?
It really is fascinating to understand it, especially the adversarial networks. When you have, deep learning is essentially layers of a neural network. Just like the human brain has the neurons, you can go all the way back to 1957, 1958, and the perceptron was a very early machine that did these things. Now it only had one layer, and it is interesting that we're changing perception, and that name sticks so well. But when you look at the adversarial networks, and you have the generator and the discriminator, and the one that's producing it is trying to fool the discriminator. It's really as they're working together. It's as if the Greeks and the Trojans opened the gate, and the Greeks or the Trojans watched them building the horse. And as they built the horse, once they said, "Oh, all right, it's just a horse and there's no people in there, come on in," and then that's when they were like, "It's good enough." It generally takes about 1,000 iterations, but you have to. The GAN model is flawed because it actually can have a convergence where it breaks down. It's kind of interesting where at some point it can't produce it anymore because it gets stuck. I don't know the exact technical definition for it, but as it takes its learned,
it goes through a loop, maybe like all of the data runs through or something like that. Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out. And that's eventually what's going to happen when there's enough AI text on the internet, it'll feed on itself. But when you look at how it does that, somebody sets a parameter where 50% of the time we can't tell, or 75% of the time, and that'll make it last longer or shorter, and how you get better or worse images. The diffusion model, as you said, is if I take an image and I zoom way into the pixels to where it's white noise, and then zoom back out, filling in those gaps with my learned ability. And that does not have that same flaw as GAN, that diffusion model, which is what like stable diffusion is named for it.
Right.
When you look at things now, they're all technically a form of generative AI, but and we haven't even ever unpacked that there has for decades there has been extractive AI, which doesn't create but can pull using neural networks from existing data sets, and it's really powerful. But when you look at these deepfakes and how they use this, it really is interesting because we talk about the singularity, which is a point in the future when AI will surpass human cognition. And people say, oh, it's, when you talk about singularity, that's like a black hole. Have we crossed that event horizon, which is the point in a black hole where you can no longer retreat, like Rush in Rocinante going towards Cygnus X1, if you want a really nerdy reference. But at what point we reach that? Now, I'm not a believer that these things will ever fully perhaps surpass human creativity or human cognition because of the unpredictable nature. I heard you had a guy on your show last month that spun off on cocaine addicted turtles. I don't know who that guy was, but I mean,
yes,
what computer would ever want to do that? And when you look at how flawed humans are, as exemplified by that guy, would a computer recreate human flaws or perfect them? Like if it's building on human ingenuity, would it not repeat those? I noticed, and this is really
because it doesn't know what's good or not. There is no moral or emotional component to it. It is just a data set. So if it needs to spit out cocaine, addicted turtles, it's going to spit that out. Not that, that would cause a lot of problems, let alone PETA would be very upset. So
right. And reptiles would march in the streets, but luckily, water to lay their eggs. Probably.
Imagine the concerts. So anyway, so you were just talking about the singularity, and when we started this episode, we played your deepfake of your initial intro, and the thing was you and I spoke yesterday, and you were wearing that gray sweatshirt with the orange, or the other day. So I want to play the next one where you talk about singularity, and singularity is really that point of no return, right?
Yes.
That real true issue that we have. So let me go ahead and play that one. And again, you didn't say this. This is actually from a paper or research that you had done.
Yes, this is completely
the rapid advance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is 100% AI that is mimicking, and we'll talk about how it mimics. I should have worn the same outfit to make this more impactful. But
no, I like knowing which one's real, which one's not. So because otherwise you'll be otherwise I need to believe what I see. So at least now I know that you're there. And
he's still got a Band-Aid from skin cancer surgery. Mine.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to play this clip, and just look at how accurate the lip movement is. The voice is identical. It is really remarkable, and the fact that you never said this is shocking.
The rapid advancement of AI technologies, as exemplified by deepfakes, serves as a stark illustration of the pace at which artificial intelligence is evolving. This evolution ignites debates around the concept of the singularity, a hypothetical future point where AI will surpass human intelligence, potentially leading to unforeseeable and transformative changes in human civilization.
That's scary. Now, let me ask you, so you didn't say that, bottom line.
I typed that. I wrote that.
You typed it.
I trained my avatar that I can write anything. I can change the pitch, the speed. I can affect the intonation. I can add,
the hand movements at the end were did you just add those in the avatar after?
All I did, I added an ellipses, meaning that I wanted a little extra time at the end. And what it has done is it's learned my mannerisms and how I speak. And what's funny is it really is a bit of a caricature.
Right.
I'd like to think that I don't have a lisp, but I must have a very slight, and that's fine. I must have a slight lisp. And actually now what's interesting in kind of the Bader Meinhof, now if you watch any newscaster tonight, listen closely. Nearly every human has a lisp of some kind. It's just a matter of degrees.
Right.
And so what the AI avatar has done is, you see, I do gesture. In the training work I was doing with it, I made sure to try to be animated. Because
you wanted to capture, you wanted to capture as much as authentically you, right?
In the first iteration, I just sat and read like this. So what I got was an avatar that could only act like this. So when I trained it the second time, I worked on providing video sources where I was more animated, my voice inflection changed. I gave it more to learn from so that it could create more, because once again, that's how that works with that adversarial model. Even the diffusion, it's got to know, it's got to dissect it down into data and then rebuild it as it creates.
Well, there's two types of deep fakes too, in terms of the video context. There's the ones that you can see online, and first of all, for those that aren't familiar with this, this is not expensive. This is not hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is $20 a month or less, depending on which one you go with. You can easily recreate or create a new avatar. And so there seems to be two types. One where you can get an avatar designed by somebody else of a different person. That person has never existed, right? Or I think what is more dangerous is the one that you just showed, and that is of an actual person that is merely saying whatever you want to program it to say.
Absolutely. And face swapping is what is still done in some, and that is done by romance scammers like the Yahoo Boys or the other various groups and use sextortion, where they'll take an avatar and just do a face swap and a voice clone, where it is a person that they've animated and it's capturing their face movements in real time, rather than what I created, which was a completely newly generated video that never existed based on my previous recordings. Now, I will give them credit. The company that I use is HeyGen. I do pay for it. I'm not paid to advertise for them, but I do have to give them credit. I'm using a legal format and following all of the rules. I don't go on Telegram and find a criminal way to do it that I could. I tried to fool, I'm going to give them some credit because I tried to fool them for today's video and create an extortion video, even a playful one, to say that I'm Paul's avatar and I have him locked in a trunk. And if you don't send me $1 million,
and it wouldn't let you create it.
It triggered its own internal AI, triggered a content moderation policy. And even though I tried various things, because I did not have any, obviously I had playful and educational intent. If they're listening, I did not.
Right, of course. But that's really good that that's built in. Yes. Good for them. Good for them.
A fantastic technology that does not even allow someone to do that trying. Then there may be ways to do it, but they're and they've even come out with a version 5 now that's even more powerful. I need to retrain my avatar again. And as I've talked to you before, I own an avatar of my boss that I can use, and I have used to fool the company that we did as a demonstration, because deepfakes and the potential for, as I said, deception versus force, for deceiving humans into acting out of their self-interest, once again, playing on those 7 deadly sins, things that we talked about before.
Yeah.
It's so transformative because, once again, for various reasons, you can't believe
it's bigger than anybody can think of. I mean, I remember July of 22, the FBI issued the alert on deepfake technology. They may have done other ones. That was the first one that I really focused on. And that had to do with a lot of people that were applying for remote jobs remotely were using some form of deepfake technology, getting these jobs. It really wasn't them. They had stolen credentials on the dark web, which is not hard to do. It's literally right there. And then they were getting a job and getting access to company systems. And then obviously just taking that access and giving it to those with criminal intent. But that was scary. And that was happening hundreds and hundreds of times, with so many reports that the FBI actually issued an alert. And that was back in July of 22. So now fast forward to today, and the technology has advanced so much. There is a great article. I will link it in the show notes here. It is by Recorded Future, and Recorded Future's Insect Group did a massive investigation into this with a lot of R&D engineers on the potential malicious uses of AI by threat actors, right? The criminal hackers. They talked about how these targeted deepfakes can influence operations at an organization, right? It can be used to impersonate executives. That's what you were just talking about, right? So you had created a deepfake of your boss, one of the senior leaders at Nexus Risk Solutions. So that's a huge organization in charge of extremely important matters, of security, national security, physical security, as well as law. And then it can be used to impersonate executives, right? And then AI generated audio and video can enhance threat actors in their social engineering campaigns. So what's also interesting is this type of technology can be used by threat actors to avoid detection in the malware that they create. So this advancement is allowing them to use these systems so that they can create malware that doesn't get detected by modern detection systems that all businesses are relying on. But then also for reconnaissance efforts too, so that they can identify vulnerable ways to get into an organization, as well as, where the keys to the kingdom are located, so that in a future attack, they can do that. Really good article, but that is really, it boils down to the fact that what they're talking about, Paul, is the new threat surface for a company or an organization, right? Includes now executive voices and executive faces.
Well,
right?
business email compromise used to cost, or still costs, millions, if not billions of dollars. Spoofing an email from the boss saying, forward this money here. Well, when it's went to a spoofed voicemail, which got a Chinese company, if it's a video, now what's coinciding with your 2022 FBI report, what's really fascinating is Stanford in 2022 did a study. And I know this is where we really met up and realized our efforts align. They studied LinkedIn, and they found over 1,000 suspected fake profiles that were deepfake AI generated. And what's interesting is they weren't being used, those in that study weren't being used for espionage, sextortion, financial crimes, or fraud. They were being used by legitimate businesses to make initial business contact because they knew that a blank email, hey, get your masters here, or, you know, hey, buy our product, they're generally rejected unless there's that human element, which is why, testimonials are so powerful.
They can, so if there's,
they contacted clients, and if they bit, they would then go, well, let me refer you to my supervisor or my friend, a real person. So rather than an impersonal email, it was a real smiling face and somebody they could connect with.
And they can check them on LinkedIn, and then they'll be there. Oh, look, they went to Harvard Law, and now they're working in customer service, right? Like, it's like, I've seen a lot of those profiles, and you're like, oh, okay. Everybody went to Harvard, everybody went to MIT. And then it's also like, but yet Bangladesh high school and something else. And you're like, what? That's not adding up, right? Like, and the years don't make sense. But anyway.
I get contacts on LinkedIn at least weekly by a, objectively extremely attractive post-collegiate young Asian female who is an executive with Estee Lauder and a degree from Stanford and Harvard. And then I get a direct message that'll say, I find your posts intelligent and you're very attractive. We should align. Once again, we talked about social engineering before. If you're a 2 at the brew pub, you're not a 10 online. I even have a...
So you've been getting my messages. So you've been getting my messages on LinkedIn? I was just looking. I'm like, I thought I used a better message last time when I reached out to you.
You are the Cyrano de Bergerac of
nobody knows who that is. We're too old.
What about the Steve Martin version of it? I forget what that was called, but hopefully they know. It's the ability to fool people, and we talked about it before, Carl Sagan and your baloney detector. It's just being broken down. We've reached a point, once again, a post-truth era, which unfortunately is I wouldn't say post-truth, it's a manufactured truth, or all the news that's printed to fit. And I want to make a couple of predictions that really terrify me. I'm hoping I'm wrong. When I applied for this job, I told my boss, I said, look, I will tell you that I'm extremely opinionated, but I'm not always right. In fact, I'm probably wrong more than I'm right, because what is the basis of the scientific method?
Right.
It's supposed to be the null hypothesis, meaning there is no correlation between baldness and all the time I spent in the sun. And then you have to prove that it is. We work reverse now, where we say, burning an orange on the stove, and if you sniff it, you smell back from COVID. You don't have to prove it. You start the other way around.
Right.
There's going to be a couple things that are going to happen. One, we see these horrible sextortion things where these primarily West African groups, although the Russians, Chinese, Ukrainians, Iranians, they're all getting involved in it. They create these deep fakes. They fool the young, and I think they've killed 27 American children.
It's 27 Americans that have been killed,
been murdered by these people. Well, then they get them to send an inappropriate picture, and then they extort them with it. The interesting thing with deepfake, or the terrifying thing, is they don't need you to.
They don't even
right
now. They just need to have contact with you, with your child. And they can then create out of thin air compromising pictures. Well, you saw it with you saw it with Taylor Swift. You saw it, right? Just a couple of months ago, right? All these horrible compromising images, which she never did, but then they're out there. But if you're not Taylor Swift and you're a kid, right, and you're being told that they're going to come and tell your parents, tell your coaches, tell your teachers, and everything else, and then they start doing it with all these fake pictures. It's horrible. I mean, there've been a lot of kids that have committed suicide from this. It goes well beyond the realm of national security and cybersecurity.
When these groups celebrated online, they taunted one father by contacting his other children and saying, "You should have heard your son beg for his life." It just enrages me, the lack of, because I think it's also born of the inhumanity of the internet. People, if I've had death threats on Twitter over something I do for my job through you talk about journalistic integrity. People say things in the comments of my LinkedIn post they would never say to me at the grocery store.
Absolutely.
You have this distance. But when you look at the capability to create a completely fake video of someone doing something abhorrent, and that's just the average person they can get $5,000 or $10,000 out of. My prediction is it scares me because I'm afraid I want to make sure this isn't, I forget the term, but where you sort of create, you create what you, through mentioning it. I don't want to put it out into the universe, but a couple of things are going to happen. Someone could say, what if someone created a deep fake of Jeff Bezos saying that I am retiring from Amazon and naming so-and-so as the head of my company and we will stop doing this. And then somebody had shorted the stock.
Right.
Crypto, we're going to see things where people are going to pump up. We've already seen it with celebrities. Putin used a deep fake of Zelensky to try to undermine Ukrainian politics by having him say things. What they did was they actually created videos of him drinking and said, we know you're an alcoholic. We're really sorry. And I forget that, maybe I have it backwards, but you're seeing this already. We're going to see that affect a business directly. What really terrifies me, because you look at how worn the fabric of our society is now, leading to abhorrent things. The riots in the streets where our courthouses were burned, or an attack on the Capitol that were born of just either exaggerated truths or horrible societal things that happen. Right. What happens if someone creates a deep fake of a violent, completely fake police action that looks racially motivated,
and it leads to riots?
It will lead to death, or a political, like even in the Jordan Peele video where he says things about Donald Trump, or he's joking because Jordan Peele's a brilliant comedian and his impersonation is believable. But that was when it was him having to use his voice. You don't need him to do the impersonation of the voice anymore. An entire George Carlin, I think, comedy special was created by somebody who was trying to celebrate him. The family didn't like it. They used a comedian mimicking the voice in a deep fake video.
Yep. But
the merging of entertainment, because a lot of this started with Hollywood visual effects and then it bled over.
Correct.
It really does terrify me now. It's not the technology itself once again, because if you wanted, I could bludgeon you with this laptop or steal your accounts with it. It's really it's interesting that the lack of humanity in these technologies allows victimization and allows people to feel that they can victimize other people. Deepfakes don't seem real until it's you or some poor. There was a recent article I posted on LinkedIn about women and young girls whose privacy and dignity are being destroyed by people creating deepfake porn of them and distributing it. It doesn't matter if it's real. It feels very real to people just establishing their own sense of self-worth, let alone an adult, or if you look at the children. But
well, think about it. I mean, even when their relatives, let's say that woman or that daughter, their relatives see these horrible images and these videos of them doing these horrible things, even if they know it didn't happen, it's still shocking to their morality, shocking to their emotional state. They still feel horrible. Like they go through a whole cycle of emotions. Some of them so acute that it's leading to people taking their own lives. But also even, in the context of business and cybersecurity, I mean, we've seen there's a couple case studies. I want to just talk about this one. It happened at the Hong Kong firm. A deepfake scammer walks off. Actually, it was an entire organized crime unit, but they walked off with $25 million in a first of its kind artificial intelligence deepfake heist. So let me read you the facts, and then let's break it down. So, significant financial loss suffered by a multinational company's Hong Kong office, amounting to $200 million of Hong Kong dollars, which is, it wound up being, I believe it was 25.6 million US. A lot of money. It was a sophisticated scam involving deepfake technology. The scam featured a digitally recreated version of the company's CFO, Chief Financial Officer, along with other employees, right, who appeared on a video conference call. So this was either a Zoom or a Teams call. And from what our research shows, there was about 8 people or so on that call. 7 of them were deep fakes. The only real person was the target, right? So they were able to convince that person through the replication, the appearance of the voice and the video, and they gathered that from publicly available video and audio footage. So the actual people that they showed, it's not like they sat there for a while and trained their avatar, right? They grabbed this from the internet, turned that around, and were able to type in real time, right, and respond to questions in what looks like a 15-minute call with this person. So there was an initial fish sent allegedly from the United Kingdom's CFO, right, to a target employee based in Hong Kong, asking them to wire transfer funds for various projects not to be disclosed to other organizations. Okay, red flag number 1. Well, the person raised the flag and said, look, I'm not responding to this. We're not doing this, right? I have doubts. So the CFO from the United Kingdom, right, or the person portraying themselves as the CFO, set up a meeting with the presence of other employees in there and convinced the target employee, right, the target mark basically, to make 15 different transactions totaling $25.6 million. And during the multi-person video call with 7 people, which were deep faked, the 8th person being the target, they asked various questions. They were able to get all of their questions, but all of the other employees were deep faked. That's pretty shocking. We haven't seen a lot of that, but
it's astounding.
That's what's coming. Like the way when you were making your prediction in the context of cybersecurity, we talked to organizations, financial institutions, commercial entities every week. Nobody has a deep fake detection budget, right? Nobody has that technology, right? Nobody has it, right? And yet it's already captured $25 million in one attempt here, right?
Well, one that we're aware of.
One that they're publicly, that they made public in China, where they don't usually admit a lot of fault or errors. So this is coming if it's not already here. And this is something that we have to get ahead of. And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because the implications can be international. You can think, well, we're a big company. We don't have to worry about this. We have various leaders that speak various languages. They won't be able to do that. No, because as my friend Paul has shown, you can get us to speak various languages, can't you? So yes. Let me share a little something here for us.
Hallo zusammen. In diesem Video werden wir besprechen, wie Hacker sie schützen und warum es wichtig ist, die Denkweise der Hacker zu verstehen.
सभी एपिसोडों से अलग है. हमारे पास एक
गंभीरता से एक जीवित लीजेंड है। पॉल एकलॉफ एक संयुक्त राज्य गुप्त सेवा एजेंट थे जो मेरे साथ बात करने के लिए तत्पर थे। वे अद्भुत थे।
माफी चाहता हूँ, मैं आपसे बात करने के इच्छुक था क्योंकि सीक्रेट सर्विस को बात करनी है, लेकिन हम इसके बारे में बात करेंगे। Good morning, Dave. It's great to talk to you again, and thank you for having me on Cybercrime Junkies. First, can I ask you why you made my face look like Mimi from the Drew Carey show last time? Everyone else looks great in your posts, but I looked like a Ringling Brothers reject. The rapid advancement of AI technologies, as exemplified by deepfakes, serves as a stark illustration of the pace at which artificial intelligence is evolving. This evolution ignites debates around the concept of the singularity, a hypothetical future point where AI will surpass human intelligence, potentially leading to unforeseeable and transformative changes in human civilization.
I've been wanting to come to the Hope Conference for years, and I really regret never having done so. I mean, look at me. This is not where I wanted to be. Everyone who attends the Hope Hacker Conference gets inspired to do something right, to do something better. Had I taken the opportunity to come to Hope before I destroyed Twitter, I'm sure things would have worked out differently.
We're going to have to go to
that was in Hindi
to see if it's accurate, or all in Hindi if it's accurate. But it's astounding that it can do that, and that's just one of many languages. I tested that one for fun for your. I know that you're like the David Hasselhoff of the Netherlands, I've heard. So, and you favor him a bit. But if you have a singing career,
is this the David Hasselhoff drunk on the floor, like grabbing a hamburger like that? That is me. No, like that part I could be.
This is the Golden God with
the Golden God version of David Hasselhoff. He has various. Yeah, he's
singing at the Berlin Wall.
Yes. You also have. Which one did you show that you said was very, very accurate? Was it the Mandarin one? Mandarin Morrow? Or
I've been told that it was a previous one I did when I was working with David Naiman from GSU, who does amazing work on the dark web as well as crime, translating an interview of him into both French and Mandarin that native speakers said was pronounced right, word choice was right.
Wow.
And, they said that it was interesting, his French version, his French friend said it had a French Canadian accent. Now, what's interesting is that just may be how the model was trained for that language.
Unbelievable. Here is one.
No longer a barrier.
Yeah, here is one in German. Let me play this, see what this looks like, because I invite our listeners that are fluent in these languages to let us know how what they thought of these. Because
aber ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch auch, but I can't fully interpret it that well. I took it in high school and college.
I'm telling you. Here, check this one out. It's a short clip, but check it out.
Hallo zusammen. In diesem Video werden wir besprechen, wie Hacker Sie schützen und warum es wichtig ist, die Denkweise der Hacker zu. Wenn Sie ein paar Minuten Zeit haben, bitten wir Sie, dieses exklusive Interview bis zum Ende anzuschauen. Es ist cool. Fragen von Zuhörern, Zuschauern erhalten. Wir hören, lesen alle Fragen, also stellen Sie sie weiter. Sie sind wichtig. Lass uns prüfen.
Okay.
And
so
your voice, fluent in German. It's astounding.
It is astounding because while I concede, I don't speak German. I don't understand what I meant. I was watching the hand movements, the pause, the intonation of the voice, the lip syncing. It was flawless. That's what scares me the most.
And those are built from existing videos. That was you
right.
Talking about hackers and asking for comments, obviously, from viewers and listeners. But it's taking the original source video. So the movements of your hands, I believe, are unaffected. It's then training itself on your lip movements for various sounds based on its algorithms, and then obviously using large language models and other things to do the language translation.
And this can be done in images as well. So I didn't have a high-res headshot of you last time. So for our last episode, I just crammed one. I think I scraped one off of LinkedIn or something I found online. It seemingly upset you, I believe, to the point where I got this sent to me, which is a deep fake, or so you claim to tell me that it's deepfake. Let's see what this one says.
Good morning, Dave. It's great to talk to you again, and thank you for having me on Cybercrime Junkies. First, can I ask you why you made my face look like Mimi from the Drew Carey show last time? Everyone else looks great in your posts, but I looked like a Ringling Brothers reject.
Yeah, that's deepfake evil, Paul.
You didn't say that. You did not record yourself saying that to me.
No, I typed it in.
You just typed it in.
But let's see if I can share this just this window. See if this works. If not, we can edit this out. Let's unpack. I mean, that's a handsome guy. Brett Johnson looks great. Look at my picture. I am smooth, teeth whitening. I look like a Dennis Quaid teeth whitening video. I mean, it is. I mean, I get it. The problem is it's not inaccurate. But everybody else, you made everybody look so good.
Well, so next time, for this episode, we're going to get a high-res headshot, and we're going to do it right. We're going to
like
get our crack marketing staff over there to get it done right. Pay attention.
Get at it. I don't know which way to point. Yeah, get on.
They're over. Wait, they're over there. Get over there and do this right. So
you didn't upset me. I'm just disappointed.
It's hilarious. So I mean, look, the element now that the threat surface for organizations includes executive leadership, their faces and their voices, the website branding, all of that, right? There are so many more controls, it seems, that need to be put in place by organizations and industries. I mean, so far, the federal government they've made some comments, some executive orders, some initiatives on artificial intelligence in general. And they've really kind of pointed out the obvious, in my opinion, like, hey, this is a risk. This is pretty bad. But what's your prediction? Like, do you see some additional controls or some additional regulations coming out, or is it going to be suggestions and best practices for organizations? What do you think we can do about all of this, Paul, is what I'm asking.
Well, that's an excellent question, but it unpacks a couple of things. The first example, which doesn't apply to us, I assume, we're pointing out the negative effects of deepfakes. And I want to very quickly say that one place that it's really helpful is in cancer detection, because you can train AI to pick out from histological samples, pick out cancerous tissue. The problem that they have is since many of these cancers are very rare, that there aren't enough samples to train the detectors. So using GAN or using a diffusion model, they can create enough versions, millions of versions of those tumors, and then train AI to detect them, that they're going to be able to detect cancers with a precision that they never could with the human eye. That's one example.
All great things.
While we're talking about the doom and gloom, because there is the great potential for harm from deepfakes, we've already seen it. What I think is interesting is you find this is the opposite of the crypto evangelists. AI doesn't seem to have evangelists telling you how great it is. Because it's a different type of technology, you'll almost never find an article in the crypto world that says something's going to go down, because that doesn't sell coins or prop up that rug before they can pull it. With AI, what you're finding is these tech leaders, whether it's Google and I can't point out specific examples, where it's an executive in these companies that are saying, AI is so incredibly dangerous, deepfakes are dangerous, and we must regulate and stop the development by small companies. Well, ask yourself, if you're heavily invested in AI and deepfakes, why would you want to point out that it's dangerous? The same reason that kids who grow up in homes where the liquor is locked up and verboten tend to drink a lot more than the ones where dad has a beer with dinner every night. And that people I know quite well. When you say that it's incredibly dangerous, it might point out why. How does anybody, and if you have listeners that do, I apologize, but how does anybody still take an actual cigarette, let alone vaping, light it on fire and suck on the smoke in their mouth in 2024, knowing how dangerous it is? I know why people continue to. I don't know why you start. I think it's the danger factor. So you're seeing some people saying how dangerous it is because it only props up their investments because of those 7 deadly sins. Someone goes, well, it's sort of a fear of missing out.
It's forbidden, right? As soon as people know that it's forbidden, then they want it more.
I better do it. On the regulatory side, what I find interesting is it's a little of the same, but you can regulate it. But the last time I checked, fraud's illegal. And yet we lost
it's
$1
not
billion
stopping
in 2
anybody.
years. Murder's illegal, but people get killed. Speeding's against, maybe a moving, but people blast by all the time. So regulations are important. Unfortunately, they have to sort of be a set of rules, and everything that you put in place for the people who follow the rules will just be exploited by those who don't. So if you have to regulate it and you have to pass laws. I just warn people not to think that, there's regulations and there's these laws, so what you see you can now trust.
Right. That's a great point. Excellent point.
It's actually dangerous because if you think, well, it's regulated, this has to be real, it's not true. One of the really neat ways that I read that a company developed for generative images was they created a way to embed, just like you've heard of those little espionage things they hide in JPEGs. You can hide code and pixels in an image that when AI trains on it, the model will collapse. Now that's only so it doesn't steal your intellectual property like an artist. It doesn't prevent it from using other ones to create one like yours, which is what, if you go into any of these Chat GPT-4 or DALL-E and tell it, make a painting in the style of a Renaissance master. I've done that online, creating images. But you look at the regulations and laws, and they're not the answer, they're a piece of it. Education and skepticism, checking your sources. The problem is, what is your source? Because you can do a layer upon layer upon layer fraud, like that one in Hong Kong, where not only the CEO was generative, but other members in the video were fake. So that, well, I know that guy, he's here. What you see, and you see this in politics, you see this in disruptive campaigns, in influence campaigns, you have something that's known as confirming the consequent. You come out with some completely silly thing like David Morrow is an alien, and if he's an alien, then he could be using this to steal Paul's image and create a deepfake to defraud the bank, which would then undermine the Federal Reserve and cause the collapse of civilization. Well, then all the discussions about the collapse of civilization, and you kind of forget that it all started on nonsense. That's called confirming the consequent, or the if-then fallacy. And so if you start at a fake video, sometimes you get so far beyond it, like the post-truth or the post, I would call it, and it's not even post-truth, it's post-deception media. You started at you've built your house on sand and it's going to erode. But if that's never detected, or once you disrupt that narrative and point out that that's fake, it doesn't matter, because all the things about how evil it is, because you're using alien technology from Area 51 are already accepted, even though they weren't born of nonsense. It's a complicated
from a, let's synthesize this down from a personal level. As we see images on social media or read things online, whether it's, about something leadership says or something pertaining to an election or a stance that a politician is making or who's running even, what should people do? I mean, verify, right? Like, don't believe it at face value.
Well, also there's a couple of, not just not believing at face value. I'm not telling you not to trust any news sources, but you also have motivators. Why are they saying what they're saying? Who would benefit from it? Follow the money. But there is a concept of Occam's razor and parsimony. You've got to look at something, and the most logical answer is most likely the simplest, given no other inputs to the equation. When that horrible, it was 15 miles from my house, that horrible and tragic bridge collapse, Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse.
It was terrible.
There are still conspiracies about why the power went out or whatever when it hit the bridge, and it's the loss of life there, the infrastructure.
Was it a Russian cyber attack? I heard that. There's no evidence of any of that.
There's no evidence of any of that. But unfortunately, people live in, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. They live in this, once again, deception world. And unfortunately, where deception rhymes with truth and this conspiracy, people assume these horrible motives in all of these things when the simple answer is probably it was some horrible human error. Now, it could rise to criminality where there was, because what you had was the boat, the power went out and the redundant systems came on. It brought the lights back on, but not the propulsion systems. Why is there not redundant power to the propulsion? And we're going down once again into the rabbit hole of that magic rabbit. But when you look at what you should believe and you see a video like that, what if it were AI generated? I mean, I have heard at one point when deepfakes were first being born, you know, and the technology was so amazing, like the Academy Award for Visual Effects was Independence Day when they had a laser at the White House and blew up, which was essentially a model and some visual effects, that the capability has gotten a lot better. And a lot of this technology was born of Hollywood. So their motivations were entertainment. If you take that same power, and as we talked about the democratization of the internet, the democratization of technology, a Millay partner of mine once talked about it as a convergence of technology. It used to be nation states that had to have like Whopper, you know, he had to have this horrible computer and, you know, Professor Falcon in his game of chess. Well, now I got a laptop that I ordered off of Amazon that I can do the same because of software as a service or the other things that I can use the computing power of a million other people. So an individual with one keyboard can destroy a nation. But now imagine if you still have the resources of that nation state at your disposal. It still is an asymmetric equation where, you know, the nation states that would seek to harm us. Although I find it interesting that the FBI and CISA just they censored and did sanctions against Chinese cyber groups. I think it was APT 30, I forget which number. I get lost. Crazy names like the
Drunk Panda and all the others.
The Bored Panda or the Indifferent Ape. You know, they censored them on that for espionage, but they were very careful to say, and this is funny because they had a reason. They said, but we're not saying that they use this to influence American politics. It was funny. You can see it in there. Like, oh, they'll tear down your infrastructure. They'll prepare for war in Hong Kong. They'll destroy our shipping, and they'll potentially endanger all of our infrastructure by destroying our water facilities. Oh, but they wouldn't influence our election. We're not saying that.
Right.
Because they need people to trust the elective process.
Right.
It's funny that you look at anything. So once again, I think I've added way too many layers to that. And
no, it's so true though. It's good context, Paul, because when we think about how all of these different advancements in technology first of all, it's just making the entire risk that we all take as people as well as organizations. It's expanded the risk surface. And this is something that has advanced so quickly. I read something yesterday that there have been more AI generated images since generative AI kind of went to the masses in November of 22 or 23 when it first, it was 22, sorry, when it first came out. There've been more images generated by people, right, than in 150 years before. And so you see just the vast amount of buy-in and use of this, that it's something that needs to be addressed pretty quickly by organizations. I mean, nobody right now, everybody thinks, well, deepfake is really just for the politicians and political things or for just social media and everything else. But we saw in Hong Kong $25 million in one act, right? That is the beginning. That is the shot across the bow. That's the beginning of what we're going to see on scale here in the United States.
And I hate to keep saying the terrifying thing, but when you look throughout history, it's not a gradual, just sort of geometric progression. It's exponential or worse. It's these clopotic waves where they build upon themselves. Like if you consider that communication up for 2,000 or 3,000 years, nothing could really go faster than the speed of a horse. No communication, no message could move. Then you had the automobile, the telegraph, the telephone, the internet, all of these things happened very quick in a span of about 100 years. And now as you see generative AI that can be used for evil, like bringing General Tarkin back to Rogue One, you can, you look at things like that can ruin your favorite, movie franchise. Although that was we all loved seeing General Tarkin in there, or Grand Moff Tarkin. But you now see AI, and it really, when ChatGPT came out in 2023, we're going to see another compressed period of development. And we've seen it with deepfakes. We've seen it with videos. What just tends to lag behind that, as it did with communication, the precipitate of that, and the benefits to society and the downfall, is that information could travel much more quickly, both in wartime and in peacetime, and for good things and bad things. We're seeing the same. We're seeing the same with deepfakes. We're seeing the same with AI, that it has the power to elevate human discourse, but also tear it down. So if you look at people, we can go into accelerationism and some of the other interesting autocatalysis and other things that could be happening here. It's very interesting what's happening. We're at a really interesting point in humanity that has profound change, both positive and negative. Hopefully we can stay ahead of the curve. And I'd love to do on a future episode what I discovered, if you're kind enough to have me back.
Well, it depends on the headshot and what I can do to it. I mean,
depending on whether I'll come back. Although I might make my teeth as wet again. That was awesome. My dentist appreciated that. He sold. You wouldn't believe the plans he sold. This technology I have now, it can take my avatar. I can and the voice clone, the video, and not supplied text, but supplied context. I can put in my bio. I can put in a couple of anecdotes, and it can live stream in real time and answer questions how I tell it. Approach it from a fifth grader, or approach it from a PhD Nobel Prize winner in astrophysics, and answer questions about AI. And it will do it. I haven't tested it yet. It purports to do it in real time for live streams. Whereas this show, you could interview me, but it would be my avatar that I've told it my background, put in my bio, put in some previous examples, and it will theoretically answer how I would answer in my voice and image.
So as we are wrapping up this episode, you just scared the living dickens out of me now, because now that is in real time live, and you can give an image with a voice that will sound and look exactly as real as possible, undetectable by the human eye and ear, and then they can just on the spot address all these questions.
It'll be using a large language model like ChatGPT for the text based on the prompts, because you can ask ChatGPT, approach this as a fraud investigator. Right. How would I examine
contextual
this? Yeah. Give it the context of the background you want it to do, answer questions in that context. I haven't dug into it yet. It just came out. And it's for live streams for companies. But as I said, predict a deep faked video that will affect a business decision and manipulate stocks, and something that'll cause a societal impact before it can be, once again, as we talked about, getting down the road of the if then fallacy, creating a video that's going to incite violence. It'll be too late once the violence starts. The video was proven false, or the use of force by the police was disproven, or the statement that something that caused it doesn't matter at that point. And those things are so real.
The damage has already been done.
Yes.
The damage has already been done.
At what point is it catastrophic? I don't know. Hopefully
Paul Eckloff, thank you so much. This will not be the last time that you're on, and we will, listeners and viewers, watch for us to address this. Paul and I are going to go and research the live stream capability of deepfake, because I think that is the next level of things we need to be at the cutting edge of, and research and get ahead of this. This is absolutely horrifying. So, Paul, thank you so much. As always, thank you not only for your service to our country, but for the entertainment and the insight and the Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.